Okay, if you would be turning to Judges, we're in chapter 8. We started or dealt last week with Gideon and particularly the winning of the battle in the initial stages. And this morning we're going to pick up with the finishing off, as it were, the enemy. Okay, so we're at Judges chapter 8, and I'll pick up reading at verse 1 just to reset the stage, but then we'll go from there. Now the men of Ephraim said to him, "Why have you done this to us by not calling us when you went to fight with the Midianites?" And they reprimanded him sharply. So he said to them, "What have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God has delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. And what was I able to do in comparison with you?" Then their anger toward him subsided when he said that. When Gideon came to the Jordan, he and the 300 men who were with him crossed over, exhausted but still in pursuit. Then he said to the men of Succoth, "Please give loaves of bread to the people who follow me, for they are exhausted, and I am pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian." And the leaders of Succoth said, "Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to your army?" So Gideon said, "For this cause, when the Lord has delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, then I will tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars." Now briefly, notice this. He anticipates victory. In his mind, there's no question. He will win. They will win. And when the Lord gives us the victory, I'm going to come back here and deal with you because of what you have done. In verse 8, then he went up from there to Penuel and spoke to them in the same way. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Succoth had. So he also spoke to the men of Penuel, saying, "When I come back in peace, I will tear down this tower." Now Zebah and Zalmunna were at Karkor, and their armies with them, about 15,000, all who are left of the army of the people of the east. For 120,000 men who drew the sword had fallen. Then Gideon went up by the road to those who dwell in tents on the east of Nobah and Jogbehah, and he attacked the army while the camp felt secure. When Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued them, and he took the two kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and routed the whole army. Then Gideon, the son of Joash, returned from battle from the ascent of Heres, and he caught a young man of the men of Succoth and interrogated him. And he wrote down for him the leaders of Succoth and its elders, 77 men. Then he came to the men of Succoth and said, "Here are Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you ridiculed me, saying, 'Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to your weary men?' And he took the elders of the city and thorns of the wilderness and briars, and with them he taught the men of Succoth." I've been taught a few lessons, but never quite that strongly. I don't recall one of that nature, but he is really disciplining them for really, think about this, it's not just failure to support Gideon, it's failure to support God. Because God's the one that's giving the victory, and we need to keep that in mind. They've trusted too long in false gods. And now they're being disciplined because that trust went too far. They didn't trust Almighty God, and that's very, very important to see. Verse 17 of chapter 8. Then he tore down the tower of Penuel and killed the men of the city. And he said to Zebah and Zalmunna, "What kind of men were they who you killed at Tabor?" So they answered, "As you are, so were they. One resembled the son of a king." Then he said, "They were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As the Lord lives, if you had let them live, I would not kill you." And he said to Jether, his firstborn, "Rise, kill them." But the youth would not draw his sword, for he was afraid, because he was still a youth. So Zebah and Zalmunna said, "Rise yourself and kill us, for as a man is, so is his strength." So Gideon arose and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, and took the crescent ornaments that were on their camels' necks. So the battle is over by that point in time. And the men of Israel, particularly the men who've gone with him, recognize that God, through Gideon, has given them a great victory. So how do they respond? Well, look at the next verse. Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, "Rule over us, both you and your son and your grandson also, for you delivered us from the hand of Midian." So what are they saying? We want a king. We want you to be king. You've led us in battle. You led us to victory. We want you to be king. We want your son to be king. We want your grandson to be king. You can have a monarchy here if you choose to. And listen to Gideon's response. But Gideon said to them, "I will not rule over you, nor shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you." Now, you want to really, in some ways, circle that verse and keep it in mind, because as we got toward the end of Judges, at least twice, it's going to say in those days there was no king in Israel, but every man did what was right in his own eyes. Well, there was a king in Israel, but the king was God, and they didn't want God to be king. And that is what he'll stress when you arrive over in Samuel, and Samuel's rejected. God indicates, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me, which is exactly what Gideon is pointing to. I really wish the story of Gideon stopped right there. Because if it did stop there, we'd have primarily good things about him. But he makes a mistake in the next few verses, and it's a mistake for which Israel is going to pay. So verse 24 of chapter 8, Judges. Then Gideon said to them, "I would like to make a request of you, that each of you would give me the earrings from his plunder." For they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. So they answered, "We will gladly give them." And they spread out a garment, and each man threw into it the earrings from his plunder. Now the weight of the gold earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, besides the crescent ornaments, pendants, and purple robes which were on the kings of Midian, and besides the chains that were around their camels' necks. And you might say, earrings weighed how much? 1,700 shekels? But now remember, the army we're talking about is 135,000. Now, I'm not sure their earrings have to weigh all that much to get to this number, to be honest about it. And that's what he's receiving. Then Gideon made it into an ephod and set it up in his city, Ophrah. And all Israel played the harlot with it there. It became a snare to Gideon and his house. Thus Midian was subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted their heads no more. And the country was quiet for 40 years in the day of Gideon. Okay, I'm going to continue to stress something that I think is very important about the Bible. I partly know that it's inspired because we hear the bad things about the people. If men had been writing this, and particularly if they've been writing about the supporters of God, they would have had no flaws. But God's people are people who do have flaws. They do make mistakes. They sin, in other words. That's the reason you can get to 1 John chapter 1, and you can see him saying, if we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. All people sin. That's just the reality of it. That was reality with Gideon. It's the reality with Abraham. We're not talking about him, of course, in this class per se. It's the reality with David. You name, whoever you want to. Great men of God still are subject to sin. They can do that. They do that. And Gideon certainly did, and it was detrimental to both his own family through a snare in their path, and also to Israel, because they ultimately play the harlot. In other words, they worship this ephod that Gideon has made. All right, then verse 29. Then Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. Gideon had 70 sons who were his own offspring, for he had many wives. And his concubine, who was in Shechem, also bore him a son, whose name he called Abimelech. Now Gideon, the son of Joash, died at a good old age, and was buried in the tomb of Joash, his father, in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. So it was, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel again played the harlot with the Baals, and made Baal-berith their god. Thus the children of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hands of all their enemies on every side, nor did they show kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, or Gideon, in accordance with the good he had done for Israel. It's remarkable. You're talking about 40 years. How long does it take to forget good things that were done? Not very long. 40 years, and they're going right back where they came from. And they don't even really acknowledge or remember that God delivered them. We need to take note. There is a tremendous joy for the individual who is baptized coming out of the water. Some way we need to focus on and capture that joy and keep thinking about it over and over again. It'll change your life if you can stay there. If I can stay there. If we can remember, the joy we felt when our burden was lifted of sin, then hopefully that will spur us to greater service. It would have helped these people if they had remembered the deliverance of God Almighty. Chapter 9, we come to a man who often is listed as the next judge. If he's a judge, he's a wicked one. He's not a good one. And it is likely that he should just be included in the list of judges. If you'll notice in the books of 1st, 2nd Kings, 1st, 2nd Chronicles, kings are called kings even when they're evil. So the chances are this guy's a judge, but he isn't much one. He's not a good one in terms of the people of Israel. So here's what happens. Then Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, went to Shechem, to his mother's brothers, and spoke with them and with all the family of the house of his mother's father, saying, Please speak in the hearing of all the men of Shechem. Which is better for you, that all 70 of the sons of Jerubbaal reign over you, or that one reign over you? Remember that I am your own flesh and bone. And his mother's brothers spoke all these words concerning him in the hearing of all the men of Shechem, and their heart was inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, He is our brother. Isn't there an old expression, blood's thicker than water? And maybe there's a portion of that we're seeing in this that's going on. They don't have any loyalty really to Gideon when you think about it. Their loyalty is strictly based on family relationship. And listen to where it's going to go. So they gave him 70 shekels of silver from the temple of Baal-berith, with which Abimelech hired worthless and reckless men, and they followed him. Then he went to his father's house at Ophrah and killed his brothers, the 70 sons of Jerubbaal, on one stone. But Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, because he hid himself. And all the men of Shechem gathered together, all of Beth Millo, and they went and made Abimelech king beside the terebinth tree at the pillar that was in Shechem. Now, if somebody were to have asked you the question before this class, who was the first king of Israel? What would your answer be? Most would say Saul. And if you're talking about the entire nation, Shechem, remember, so that a Saul. It's yes. In the book of Joshua, we saw, city after city after city as they conquered it. Each of them had a king, and that's pretty foreign to us. Although at times I've wondered about some of our governors and mayors if they don't think they're king. But anyway, that's really we don't have a king over all. In fact, we don't have theoretically a king at all in this land. So. That's what's going on here. They do have a king that they set up in Shechem, probably city-state king. That's my guess on that. And when they told Jotham, he went and stood on top of Mount Gerizim and lifted his voice and cried out. And he said to them, "Listen to me, you men of Shechem, that God may listen to you. The trees once went forth to anoint a king over them. And they said to the olive tree, 'Reign over us.' But the olive tree said to them, 'Should I cease giving my oil, with which they honor God and men, and go to sway over the trees?'" Now pause a minute and think about this. The olive tree says, "I've got a job to do, and it's not to rule over the trees. My job is to produce olive oil. And that olive oil is used in worship to God." And of course it was. If you track that on through in Exodus and Leviticus in particular, you'll see that being used. Okay, verse 10, chapter 9. "Then the trees said to the fig tree, 'You come and reign over us.' But the fig tree said to them, 'Should I cease my sweetness and my good fruit and go to sway over trees?'" Again, what the point is, they're not. God doesn't need a king. The trees don't need a king. God's over the trees, and Jotham is highlighting that through a type of parable that he's telling. In this case, it's a made-up story that he's using, but he's making a pretty good point. "Then the trees said to the vine, 'You come and reign over us.' But the vine said to them, 'Should I cease my new wine, which cheers both God and men, and go to sway over trees?' Then all the trees said to the bramble, 'You come and reign over us.' And the bramble said to the trees, 'If in truth you anoint me as king over you, then come and take shelter in my shade. But if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon.'" Well, it's kind of hard to imagine choosing a bramble to be king, but if you think about the way this story is told, Jotham is saying that his half-brother Abimelech is a bramble bush. He's just a thorn bush is what he is. And he's not good for you, but that's the choice you've made now. And listen to his application now of the story. "Now therefore, if you've acted in truth and sincerity in making Abimelech king, and if you dealt well with Jerubbaal and his house, and have done to him as he deserves, for my father fought for you and risked his life and delivered you out of the hand of Midian. But if you've risen up against my father's house this day and killed his 70 sons on one stone, and made Abimelech, the son of his female servant, king over the men of Shechem, because he is your brother, if then you've acted in truth and sincerity with Jerubbaal and with his house this day, then rejoice in Abimelech, and let him also rejoice in you." Now, pause a minute. What he's saying is, if you think you've treated Gideon correctly, if you think it was fair and right to kill all of his sons except this half-brother, this brother by a concubine, well, good. I hope God blesses you. That's the idea. But now, what does he think about it? I can tell you what he thinks by what he says next. But if not, let fire come from Abimelech and devour the men of Shechem and Beth Millo, and let fire come from the men of Shechem and from Beth Millo and devour Abimelech. And Jotham ran away and fled, and he went to Beer and dwelt there for fear of Abimelech, his brother. Okay, you've made a choice. And from Jotham's point of view, their choice is going to end in their destruction. Abimelech has, when somebody won't even be loyal to their own family, you can't trust them to be loyal for anybody else either. And I've said that on occasion to people in reference to folks that are running for office. If they're unfaithful to their wives, don't count on being faithful to the city or the state or the nation. They won't be. You can't count on them. They won't be faithful to their wife. They won't be faithful to anybody. And how are they going to do it? Well, they'll do it lots of ways. They'll take money. They'll rule for their own purposes and gain power for their own sake. And Abimelech has demonstrated that quality. If you want, it's not a good quality, but it's what he has demonstrated very clearly in what he has done. So let's pick up now at verse 26. After Abimelech had reigned over Israel 3 years, God sent a spirit of ill will between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. And the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech, that the crime done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal might be settled, and their blood laid on Abimelech, their brother, who killed them, and on the men of Shechem, who aided him in the killing of his brothers. Now here's my question. Will God make it right? We don't need to be responsible or think it's our job to find vengeance. Why not? Because God will make it right. How's he going to do it? I don't know. I know he will in judgment. That much I can say for sure. But God will make it right. And you see, he sends this spirit of ill will between them. And, when you talk about the spirit of ill will that he sends, he knows the nature of Abimelech, and he knows the nature of these men. And the sending here might be, he just let Abimelech be Abimelech. And the men of Shechem were the men of Shechem. They acted just like they always had. That may be what we're talking about. But whatever the case may be, there's trouble. And God is going to use that trouble to his advantage so that he can bring about judgment against Abimelech and the men of Shechem. So, verse 25 of chapter 9, Judges. And the men of Shechem set men in ambush against him on the tops of the mountains, and they robbed all who passed by them along that way. And it was told Abimelech. Now Gaal, the son of Ebed, came with his brothers and went over to Shechem, and the men of Shechem put their confidence in him. Now see, Abimelech's king, but they've changed allegiance. So how loyal are they? Not very. They weren't loyal to Gideon when he died. They just let his sons be killed. And truth be known, as we've already seen here, when things don't work the way they want it to with Abimelech, they're not loyal to him either. They're not loyal to anybody. So they're going to be deserving of what they get as well. So they went out into the fields and gathered grapes from their vineyards and trod them and made merry. And they went into the house of their God and ate and drank and cursed Abimelech. Then Gaal, the son of Ebed, said, Who is Abimelech and who is Shechem that we should serve him? Is he not the son of Jerubbaal, and is not Zebul his officer? Serve the men of Hamor, the father of Shechem. Why should we serve him? If only this people were under my authority, then I would remove Abimelech. So he said to Abimelech, Increase your army and come out. Well, He's seen that they're receptive to treachery. Let's just be honest about it. And he'd like to be in power. Watch out. Anybody that wants power will do just about anything to get it. That's biblically, you can prove that easily. It's done over and over again. But it's just as true today. The nature of man has not changed. Cannot tell you how many times people through the years have come out and said, "You were preaching right at me today." Well, I had no idea, that they had whatever issue it was in their life. So how is it that I preached right at them? I just used the word. That's all it takes. It's got everything any man ever thought about doing. It's in here. You got a problem with drinking? It's in here. Solomon's pretty strong on it. Be honest about it. In the book of Proverbs, got a problem with anger? Paul deals with that, and by the way, Solomon does too in the book of Proverbs. But Paul deals with it in the book of Ephesians chapter 4, and we can keep going. Got a problem with marriage? Well, that's listed. Paul deals with that. 1 Corinthians 7. Just keep going. What problem do you have? It's in here. And I don't know how many times I've told young preachers, if you go to a place and you see they've got a problem with X, and you name whatever X is, I don't have to name it. Let's just give one example. Let's say tongue. They got a tongue problem at this church. And here's what I tell them to do: preach through the book of James. You will logically, ultimately come to the tongue. And when you do, it will do the job. God will do the job. You don't have to do this. It's not your job to criticize or condemn anybody. It's your job to let the truth do the work. And see, we're finding that out right now about our Bible studies with people. Let the Bible speak. It's the best teacher there is. There's not a better one. So very important for us to see that. And so he says, "Come on out, we're ready to fight." And he's not the last that'll do that. He's also not the last that's going to pay for that kind of a statement. So verse 30, when Zebul, the ruler of the city, heard the words of Gael, the son of Ebed, his anger was aroused. And he sent messengers to Abimelech secretly, saying, "Take note, Gael, the son of Ebed, and his brothers have come to Shechem, and here they are, fortifying the city against you. Now therefore, get up by night, you and the people who are with you, and lie in wait in the field. And it shall be, as soon as the sun is up in the morning, that you shall rise early and rush upon the city, and when he and the people who are with him come out against you, you may then do to them as you find opportunity." So Abimelech and all the people who were with him rose by night and lay in wait against Shechem in 4 companies. When Gael, the son of Ebed, went out and stood in the entrance of the city gate, Abimelech and the people who were with him rose from lying in wait. And when Gael saw the people, he said to Zebul, "Look, people are coming down from the tops of the mountains." But Zebul said to him, "You see the shadows of the mountains as if they were men." Boy, you need to know who you're putting your trust in before you put your trust in them. Because Zebul is not on the side of Gael at all. He's on Abimelech's side. So Gael spoke again, said, "See, people are coming down from the center of the land, and another company is coming from the diviner's terebinth tree." Then Zebul said to him, "Where indeed is your mouth now, with which you said, 'Who is Abimelech that you should serve him?' Are not these the people whom you despised? Go out, if you will, and fight with them now." So Gael went out, leading the men of Shechem, and fought with Abimelech. And Abimelech chased him, and he fled from him, and many fell wounded to the very entrance of the gate. Then Abimelech dwelt at Arumah, and Zebul drove out Gael and his brothers so that they would not dwell in Shechem. And it came about on the next day that the people went out into the field, and they told Abimelech. So he took his people, divided them into 3 companies, and lay in wait in the field. And he looked, and there were the people coming out of the city. He rose against them and attacked them. Then Abimelech and the company that was with him rushed forward and stood at the entrance of the gate of the city. And the other two companies rushed upon all who were in the fields and killed them. So Abimelech fought against the city all that day, took the city, killed the people who were in it, and he demolished the city and sowed it with salt. Well, that never made total sense to me. He's conquered the city now, and he's made the fields unusable. But what he's doing is retaliating. People that are looking for vengeance don't often use good sense. In fact, I don't think they ever do. But certainly he didn't, in my view. Now, when all the men of the tower of Shechem heard that, they entered the stronghold of the temple of the god of Berith. And it was told Abimelech that all the men of the tower of Shechem were gathered together. That's always the best way to do it, right? If you don't want somebody to find you, everybody get together in one place. That's what they did. Then Abimelech went up to Mount Zalmon, he and all the people who were with him. And Abimelech took an axe in his hand, cut down a bough from the trees, and took it and laid it on his shoulder. Then he said to the people who were with him, "What you've seen me do, make haste and do as I have done." So each of the people likewise cut down his own bough and followed Abimelech, put them against the stronghold, and set the stronghold on fire above them, so that all the people of the tower of Shechem died, about 1,000 men and women. Now, remember the story that Jotham told? Fire's going to go out from him and going to destroy you. It pretty much works out that way, doesn't it? It's exactly fulfilled. So that's that part, but it continues. Then Abimelech went to Thebez, and he camped against Thebez and took it. But there was a strong tower in the city, and all the men and women, all the people of the city, fled there and shut themselves in. Then they went up to the top of the tower. So Abimelech came as far as the tower and fought against it. And he drew near the door of the tower to burn it with fire. Hey, it worked once. Let's try it again. Well, the thing is, there's a woman up in this tower that's got some smarts of her own. And so what happens? But a certain woman dropped an upper millstone on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. Then he called quickly to the young man, his armor bearer, and said to him, "Draw your sword and kill me, lest men say to me, a woman, or say of me, a woman killed him." So his young man thrust him through, and he died. And when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they departed, every man to his place. By the way, is there any loyalty from these men? Not really. If they really thought much of Abimelech, they'd have gone ahead and wiped out Thebez, but they didn't do that. There's no loyalty among these people at all. Why not? They don't follow a God of principle. They follow a God of that's followed with emotion and with I'm not getting the right word. Sorry, it'll come to me after a while. Probably during the sermon. So if you hear me say a word, you'll know what it was. So at any rate, they don't follow a God of principle at all. Then listen to the text. And I've underlined this in my Bible because I want to always remember this. Thus God repaid the wickedness of Abimelech, which he had done to his father, by killing his 70 brothers. And all the evil men of Shechem God returned on their own heads, and on them came the curse of Jotham, the son of Jerubbaal. So, is there any principle there that we should realize is also a principle in the New Testament? What about Galatians chapter 6, verses 7 and 8? Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to the flesh, shall the flesh reap corruption. He that soweth to the Spirit, shall the Spirit reap life everlasting. it may look like, and you see that more so in Psalms, I think, it may look like the wicked are really benefiting from their wickedness. But how long is it going to last? Well, only till judgment, at best. Only till judgment. And then it's done. It's finished. God will deal with them. And that's what happens here. It's very, very important for us to see that. Now, I didn't include this in your notes, but there are two real quick judges that come at the beginning of chapter 10. And then that'll pave the way for us to begin to talk about next week, ultimately, Jephthah. Okay, so verse 1, chapter 10. After Abimelech, there arose to save Israel Tola, the son of Puah, the son of Dodo, a man of Issachar. And he dwelt in Shamir, in the mountains of Ephraim. He judged Israel 23 years, and he died and was buried in Shamir. Well, that's all we know about him. That's it. Was he a good man? Apparently he was. God used him to deliver the people. And 23 years of peace, that's not bad when you consider some of the other things that go on. So that's Tola. Then we get this, verse 3. After him arose Jair, a Gileadite, and he judged Israel 22 years. Now he had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys. They also had 30 towns, which they called Havoth Jair. And that just means towns of Jair is all that means. To this day, which are in the land of Gilead. And Jair died and was buried in Kaman. And that's all we know about him. That's it. Both men are used by God in a good way. Both lead to some years of peace. I mean, Jair goes 22 years, so between the two of them, you've got 45 years of peace that come because of these men. But other than this little tidbit about the sons of Jair, we really don't know anymore. But they are mentioned. And that leads me to another point that I want to remember in my life, and I hope you'll find it useful to you. God knows you. You may be viewed by other people as insignificant. You may think that you're insignificant. But God knows you. He knows these two judges that really we know very little about. But He knows them. And His inspired penman writes about them. I'm going to be honest with you. If I can get to the day of judgment and I just hear, enter in, good and faithful servant, I don't really care who knew me on earth. Do you? I think the most important thing is that God knows me when I get to the judgment day. And to me, that's a marvelous point that we need to see within this text. I want to continue to say some things to you about our reaching out to other people. We went again yesterday and took welcome baskets to people who have moved into the area. And I'm going to tell you, I'm finding a remarkable response. People appreciate us visiting at their houses. And they, one woman we dealt with yesterday, Daryl was my partner. We went to her house and she basically said, man, the church where I am, we hadn't met in over a year. And she said, I want my children in Bible class. And so she says she'll be here today. Now, so be on the lookout. Look for visitors. Welcome them. Make them feel good. But she wasn't the only one. Went to another place and got almost the same response. She didn't say anything about where she had gone to worship, but she just indicated, wow, this is something. You reaching out to the community. You care. If you're like me, and I don't want to judge everybody by me, but sometimes I think, well, everybody that lives around me, they've already made their minds up. I'm not going to do any good with them. I'm discovering that's probably not true. What's true is I hadn't even made an effort in some cases to talk to them, to just just befriend them and then take advantage of the opportunities that friendship will present to possibly teach them the Word of God. I want to give one note that comes out of some of the studies other people are doing. This is my opinion. You can take it or leave it. Don't give somebody the booklet before you go through it with them. It's more powerful if they sit and read it out loud, and all you do is ask the questions. But there's a power in the Word of God. And if you give them the booklet, you don't know whether they're going to look at the Word of God or not. Raise your hand, if you don't mind, if you've ever said, tomorrow I'm going to do X, and you didn't do it. See, we can, every one of us raise our hand, can't we? Sophia, I'll bet you, because I did this, she's gone off maybe down to James's mama's house and took papers to grade, didn't grade one of them on the whole trip. I've done that. I've done that. I'm not picking on her. Teachers do that. We all do that. So listen, the person may be honestly telling you, I will study. Don't trust them any more than you'd trust yourself. Go ahead and study with them, set it up, and let it work that way. All right, next week, Lord willing, we pick up at verse 6 of chapter 10, and Jephthah really goes on quite a distance there all the way through chapter 12. So if you want to read ahead and get an idea of where we're going, and Jephthah is one of those guys a lot of questions about from some people, so you probably want to get ready for that. Thank you.